Welcome to 16th century Nuremberg. Imagine a respectable merchant hurrying through the city streets at twilight, carrying his feverish, injured child. He arrives at a timbered house built directly over the Pegnitz River, a location chosen specifically so the flowing water can wash away the spiritual filth of the man who lives inside. The man who answers the door takes the child and carefully, expertly sets the broken bone. The bee's gentle, healing hands belong to the exact same man who, just hours earlier, tightened a hemp noose around a thief's neck in the city square. This is Meister Frantz Schmidt. Forget the stereotype of the medieval executioner as a drunken, hooded thug. Frantz wore fine bourgeois clothing, maintained strict sobriety, and earned a salary on par with the city's wealthiest lawyers. He was a highly visible, absolutely essential gear in the machinery of the Holy Roman Empire. Yet, under the laws of the time, society classified him as a walking plague. He was a man respectable people refused to touch. Franz was trapped by a legal and social concept known as Unehrlichkeit, or ritual pollution. The contagious trade dealting death and state coercion, the law decreed that his very presence carried a contagious dishonor. He was banned from entering churches, sitting in taverns, or even visiting public bathhouses. The magistrates of Nuremberg paid him handsomely to maintain law and order, ensuring he lived in a spacious, comfortable home. But if he walked into a public room, those same magistrates would refuse to sit at his table, terrified that casual contact would ruin their own reputations. How does a highly skilled, wealthy civic official end up trapped in an inescapable nightmare where his own children are legally barred from ever holding a respectable job? To understand how Meister Franz eventually became the empire's most sought-after healer, we have to look backward. We have to witness the exact afternoon his family's honor was stolen from them. The year is 1553, in the small Bavarian town of Hof. A tyrannical margrave named Albrecht Alcibiades has just ordered 3 local men to be hanged for an alleged plot against his life. But Hof doesn't have a professional executioner on staff. Instead of waiting for a specialist to arrive from a neighboring city, the margrave bypasses standard protocol. He points into the crowd at a respectable local woodsman named Heinrich Schmidt and commands him to do it. When Heinrich protests, the margrave gives him a choice: pull the lever or take their place on the scaffold. Heinrich performs the executions to save his own life. The moment the bodies drop, the trap springs on his family. His neighbors instantly ostracize him. Blocked from his trade as a woodsman, Heinrich is forced to become a professional executioner, dooming his infant son, Franz, to inherit a life of isolation. The Schmidt family's descent into the dishonorable class had nothing to do with crime or moral decay. It was a sudden, arbitrary exercise of noble power that lopped Franz into a violent trade before he could even walk. For Franz, taking up his father's sword was terrifyingly dangerous. 16th century crowds expected clean, swift executions. If an executioner watched a beheading and required multiple swings, the spectators were legally permitted to storm the scaffold, drag the executioner down, and stone him to death. Franz developed a calculated survival strategy. While other executioners drank heavily to cope with the trauma of their work, Franz took a vow of absolute sobriety. He trained obsessively, developing a steady hand and a surgical mastery over the executioner's sword. By legally torturing and dismantling the human body, Franz acquired a profound, hands-on education in anatomy. He learned exactly how joints dislocated, how muscles tore, and how bones splintered. Paradoxically, this gave him an intimate understanding of how to put those same pieces back together. He used this technical perfection to survive the angry mobs of the gallows, but in private, he was quietly building a medical skill set that would allow him to manipulate the very system designed to keep him in the shadows. We know the exact details of Franz's career because he kept a meticulous professional journal. The state required this ledger to prove he was efficiently carrying out his mandates for interrogations and capital punishments. But Franz was keeping a second, hidden ledger. The records show that the exact same patricians and merchants who crossed the street to avoid his shadow during the day were secretly sneaking to his house at night, desperate for his medical expertise. This chart illustrates the total toll of his official duties: Over a 45-year career, his biographer verified that Meister Frantz executed exactly 394 people. Now look at his private hearing practice. By his own conservative estimate, Frantz conducted 15,000 medical consultations. He healed nearly 40 people for every one he was forced to kill. The question was whether this overwhelming ledger of life could ever carry enough weight to buy back his family's name. By 1624, Frantz Schmidt is an old man. He has survived the gallows, amassed a small fortune in real estate, and saved thousands of lives. Yet, under the law, he and his children remain officially trapped in the dishonorable class. He decides on one final gamble. Frantz drafts a 13-page petition and sends it directly to Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand II in Vienna. He leverages his decades of flawless civic service and points to the thousands of prominent citizens he has healed, asking for a pardon for a crime his family never committed. The emperor's response arrives in a formal decree. It declares that the inherited shame of the Schmidt family is officially, quote, abolished and dissolved. The stain placed on his father 71 years earlier is wiped clean. When he died a decade later, Frantz was given a lavish funeral in one of Nuremberg's prominent cemeteries. His lifetime of healing had finally outweighed the curse forced upon his father. Nuremberg demanded Frantz Schmidt's brutal services to function, but pushed him to the margins to keep its own hands feeling clean. He spent 45 years forced into a violent trade, while the same community that relied on his sword refused to share a table with him. While our modern world has abandoned the laws of ritual pollution, we still rely on labor that remains largely invisible, essential industries that keep cities running, while the workers themselves are often kept at a social distance. Meister Frantz spent his life forcing a hypocritical system to recognize his humanity. It leaves us to wonder which essential figures in our own world are still waiting for that same recognition.